Hello everybody, Formula 2 returned to the historic Spa-Francorchamps circuit this weekend and it did not disappoint. We had mixed conditions, we had a black flag, we had drivers dropping it on the reconnaissance lap, a driver crashing the pit lane and obviously a big moment in the championship as well. This is the F2 show by Inside F2. I'm your host Fraser Ford and joining me to reflect on round number 11 of the season we have Inside F2's Aaron Harper and Emily Sands. Coming up on the show then, Jack Doohan was a winner for the second time in 7 days. We reflect on another victory for the Aussie. We have a new championship leader. We look at the wins and the woes from this weekend. And we take a look at the standings with just 3 rounds to go. Okay, but before all of that, another week, another Jack Doohan win and another podcast appearance by Emily Sands. Aaron, it's, she only really turns up on the podcast with her boy wins and it looks a little bit suspicious now, doesn't it?
Maybe she's his lucky charm. Maybe we should get her on the podcast more often because if Emily's on the show, then he seems to do well the week after. And so Emily, how do you feel about Jack Doohan's win?
You've heard it here first. I'm the lucky charm. I'm definitely not. Obviously non-biased, but very happy. Very happy. I feel like we're finally getting something back from a kind of a not so great season. But I'm still worried that he's left it too late.
100% non-biased views from Emily there. Emily, the question that's on everyone's minds is, were you wearing the famous Jack Doohan t-shirt on Sunday? Is that why you won the race?
I wasn't. I didn't wear it. I know. It was in the washing machine. I was trying to find it and then I realised that I put it in the wash and I didn't wash it in time. So maybe it wasn't a lucky omen. Maybe just being in my house is the omen. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, it's not the t-shirt clearly. It's just you turning up on the podcast. So yeah, we'll get you on for the Zandvoort review as well, and we'll be discussing Jack Doohan's third win in as many races. Maybe let's wait and see. Let's talk a little bit more in detail about Jack Doohan's win. And as we said, he was the winner of the feature race from P11 on the grid as well this weekend. A very different victory to his last win, obviously last weekend. Obviously winning from the front on that occasion. How did you reflect on that performance, Emily?
Yeah, I think the safety car and the pit stop that he made was timed perfectly. I don't think that could have gone any better for him, to be honest. I was a bit worried about him coming out on cold tyres when Pourchaire was so close to him. I didn't know who was going to come out first, but obviously Teo did get in front, but then Jack just managed to get back with 2 laps to go. And I think everyone else pitting also at the same time, the top 5 all pitted, which kind of let him go up a bit further. I think it was just the strategy was just there. And I think he was so daring with his overtakes all weekend. I mean, it was a crazy weekend for F2. It was so exciting to watch it all unfold. But he was so brave with the late braking, and a couple of times he kind of lost the back of the car, but he managed to keep it in between the race tracks, and it was great. It was amazing. It was everything I could have asked for.
Yeah, Aaron, an element of luck involved with his victory, obviously with the safety car coming out, or good strategy? A bit of both, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely, a little bit of both. Because when you go on that alternate strategy, you need a safety car to really make it pay dividends. Look at how it worked out for Ayumu Iwasa and Richard Verschoor in Austria when they got the safety car that allowed them to be in position to capitalise. And that's what it's all about, putting yourself in a position to capitalise. And I feel... I'm not sure if it's quite the same with the F2 tyres as it is with the F1 tyres. But obviously the Pirellis have a bit of a reputation for needing to be babysat early on. Don't go too hard too soon on them and they'll pay you back. So Jack being able to bring his tyres in gently behind the safety car just played beautifully into his hands, meant he could attack. And he was what I really liked was he was really mature about how he attacked. He didn't just go for it. He waited until it was the right moment to go in and make the overtake on Pourchaire with the DRS down the Kemmel Straight. He was always going to have superior speed, superior traction. He could have had Teo in any sort of position halfway around the lap and just outdone him on traction. That's the benefit of soft tyres. And he was driving well all weekend, and he made the progress he needed to. The safety car obviously came out at the right time, but like I said, you've got to be there to take advantage of it. If you don't buy a ticket, you won't win the prize.
Very true. Very fair racing by both of those drivers as well. And yeah, Jack Doohan voted Inside F2's driver of the weekend by the fans. And Aaron, I'm getting slightly concerned because I did say last week, didn't I, that I'd do a shoey if Jack Doohan wins the championship. I didn't think he was going to do it. He was a million miles away for a long way through the season. And here we are 7 days later and he's 38 points off the championship lead. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit worried. I mean, I'm still fairly confident, but it's I'm feeling a bit nervous about it.
Well, you should be, because I did say last week all it takes is a random event, a DNF for one of the main championship contenders, and we had exactly that for poor Fred Vesti, which we'll get into. But I'd be getting your oldest and smelliest shoe ready, Fraser.
I'm not. No, I don't even want to think about it. On a serious note, Emily, he is in with an outside chance at the title, isn't he? You would say now, only 38 points back, that he has an outside chance, doesn't he?
I mean, yeah, you can hope and dream and say that, but obviously a couple of weeks ago he was P7 in the standings, then he was P5, now he's P4. I tried to do the maths, but I'm really, really, really bad at numbers, so I didn't want to even try and work out where he needed to get or what he needed to win to try and take the championship. So if someone wants to do the maths for me, by all means, let me know what his chances are. But I still feel like I said last week, I agree with Aaron. It was a good strategy, good managing the tyres, but also very lucky. And I don't know, I guess Zandvoort is kind of a new track for F2. So is he going to be able to perform as well there as what he has done at Spa and Budapest? I'm not sure, but I still feel like there might be a small chance that you won't be doing that shoey, Fraser.
Yeah, I will take that, Aaron. And you know what? I'm not going to get too big-headed too soon because that could bite me later on in the season. So let's wait and see. A very sincere thank you to producer James, by the way, for making the thumbnail of this week's episode, a picture of Pourchaire and doing a shoey on the podium as well. Thanks, producer James. Really making me nervous about that situation as well. Let's talk about Théo Pourchaire, our new championship leader, P2 in the feature race. As you say, slightly unlucky with the safety car coming out because he probably would have won that race had the safety car not come out. A podium in the sprint race as well. A total of 19 podiums for Pourchaire in Formula 2 now, which is pretty outrageous record, isn't it? Is that consistency of a champion, Emily?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, Théo's got more experience than Vesti, and I do feel bad for Vesti because, it was a really unlucky weekend for him. And at Silverstone, obviously, that was really unlucky for him as well. But I think Théo has that consistency that is going to maybe bring him out on top. He came second last year in the championship. I feel like it's more his to win than Vesti. But you could look at it, has Vesti got more to lose than Théo? But I think his consistency might take him to the end of the championship. And I think that we'll see a whole reshuffle again before we get there. But I hope that Pourchaire manages to do it this year.
Aaron, is he now in control from here on in, given his experience in the championship, given the amount of years that he's been in this, his third season, obviously he's been in the championship battle before. Is it his to lose now?
I wouldn't go that far, and I wouldn't say he's in control of it because Formula 2 is notoriously unpredictable. I mean, who could have predicted that the championship leader wouldn't even take the start of the feature race? It's just random things like that. And I was looking at the Zandvoort qualifying and the standings on Wikipedia for last year, and Pourchaire didn't have a particularly strong qualifying. He was 16th last year. Jack Doohan started the race second on the feature race, and Fred Vesti was where was he? He was somewhere. There he was, 11th. So historically, Zandvoort not a strong track for Pourchaire. So it could all change once again, and Jack Doohan is currently the man in form. So you'd have to say he's the one to watch at the moment. But it's a good position to be in with 3 rounds to go, to be at the front of the table, the front of the championship. So he's in a good position, but by no means in control. Drugovich last year was in control. He had a substantial points advantage. But this year has been so close. It's changed so often. You really can't hang your hat too firmly on any one driver as to who's even going to be on pole or win, because Martins and Bearman have shown that they're absolutely quick enough to be disruptive in this championship fight. And they're teammates of two of the drivers that are going for it. And we covered that last week, the team orders battle, or debate even. And I'm sure that will come into effect at some point if things keep getting as interesting as they are.
Yeah, it's an amazing championship to watch this year, isn't it? As competitive as ever. And as you say, so many drivers with so much talent all going for wins, for pole positions, which is, pretty incredible. A driver who obviously didn't win this weekend and probably won't be happy with his weekend is Frederik Vesti, spinning on the reconnaissance lap on the way to the grid. I mean, I don't want to be too harsh because it's a mistake. Frederik Vesti has been driving at such a good level this year, and really, really good driver. But is that potentially a career-changing error for Frederik Vesti if he doesn't go on to win the title now? Will he look back at that potentially being, not only the error that cost him the championship, but also potentially the error that cost him a Formula One drive, maybe?
Yeah, I think there's, like you said, I don't want to be too harsh by saying that it's a career-changing situation, but I think, that's definitely going to play on the back of his mind, and he's always going to be, if I just hadn't have done that, or if I'd just done this differently, then that wouldn't have happened. And I think, you can say that for a lot of things that happens even without racing, just in life in general, if you just did something a little bit different. It's a little bit harsh to say that it could be, a career-changing aspect, but for him, it's definitely going to, play on his mind. I think being a Mercedes junior as well, there's a lot to live up to that name. George Russell did really well in F2 and is now, after being at Williams for a few years, is now in Mercedes, and he's doing a really good job there. And I think from last year's season, obviously he wasn't really, I don't remember anyone really saying, he's going to be a title contender last year. But this year he's like completely just come in and stormed all the way through, and everyone's gone, wow, he's really good, being at the top of the table. And now, obviously, because of that mistake, he's lost out potentially to Pourchaire. So I guess we'll have to see. But I think hopefully with the summer break, he might have some time to reflect on that and come back at Zandvoort and maybe have a bit more of a winner's head on and try and play it a bit more strategically. Who knows? We'll have to see.
I'll have to pick up on the Mercedes junior point, because the Mercedes sort of philosophy, that no blame culture, I think that filters down into the way they manage their young drivers. So if you think about the George Russell collision with Bottas, they drew the line in the sand of this wasn't acceptable from George Russell. And obviously that was a mistake on his part, but they didn't sort of beat him to death with it and hold it against him. I don't think this is going to change his career trajectory, whether he wins the title or not. I think if he wins the title, he'll change his career path. But I think Mercedes, the way they deal with young drivers, they don't have very many young drivers. So they've got Vesti, they've got Paul Aron, they've got Kimi Antonelli. So it's not a very large pool. Red Bull, on the other hand, own half the grid. They tend to hedge their bets a bit more. But Mercedes, the way they deal with their young drivers, I think Fred will be in good hands. They'll coach him through it. Even the 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton has had issues like this. Just think Baku 2021, where he hit the brake magic and went straight on. It can happen. That's racing. It's just unfortunate that it's cost him such a great opportunity to potentially score good points in a feature race.
Yeah, it's the worst time as well to make a mistake like that just before the summer break. Ideally you'd have a race the next weekend, and that's all you're thinking about moving forward. But to be reflecting on that for 3 weeks is really unfortunate for Frederik Vesti, isn't it? And as you say, hopefully Mercedes will support him through that. So not a good weekend for him, not a great weekend for Ayumu Iwasa either, Aaron. Difficult weekend for both of those. Very, very challenging weekend.
Yeah, it wasn't great for Fred Vesti, but it was even worse for Ayumu Iwasa. I don't think he got points in the sprint race, and he qualified 17th, I believe.
16th, it was well down the order, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mentioned this last week. He needs to nail qualifying. Okay, this week qualifying was a complete lottery, and it was basically only the two Premers and Victor Martins who got representative dry laps in. So, he was at the behest of the pit lane ordering. as to where he came out in that was Iwasa. But to make that error in the feature race and collect Dennis Hauger, yeah, I think that's sort of curtailed all momentum that he had. So we had the second place in Austria and then not such a strong weekend after that. Then the decent run last week in Hungary, followed by this weekend, which has been really poor. It's very intermittent, and you've got Pourchaire scoring regular podiums, Vesti regularly at the front, Jack Doohan now really on a roll. Iwasa could be looking at third, fourth, fifth in the championship, and Martins and Bearman are there, ready to make an impact too. So, from potentially being spoken about as a possible AlphaTauri driver next season, he's looking a little bit ropey, even for a top 3 now in F2. But I've said all this, and now he'll win both races in Zandvoort, and something ridiculous will happen like that. So I'll just pre-congratulate Ayumu on his magnificent double in Holland.
Amazing. Yeah, Formula 2, so unpredictable, isn't it? And as we all know, everything we say on this podcast ends up, the complete opposite ends up happening the next race weekend, doesn't it? So let's wait and see. Yeah, a really difficult weekend for Prema, wasn't it? And particularly in the feature race, obviously it's starting first and second on the grid, meant to be starting first and second on the grid. And Ollie Bearman obviously eventually fell down to P7 in the feature race after the penalty. I wanted to get your thoughts on that, Aaron. Obviously, it was a coming together with Victor Martins on the Kemmel Straight. What were your thoughts on that? Is that a fair penalty, or is that slightly unlucky? And I want unbiased opinions as well from Mr. Ollie Bearman fanboy as well. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've seen much worse than what Ollie got slapped with a penalty for. But that's not to say he wasn't at fault for the incident. It was definitely his fault. I don't think it was really worth a 5-second penalty, but Martins was forced off the track because he was no longer able to control the car enough to slow down.
100%. I do have to say, I do think it was Ollie Bearman's fault. I do think, obviously, moving towards Victor Martins at the end of the straight towards the braking zone is not what we want to see. I saw a few arguments on Twitter, or not arguments, but people saying, Victor Martins still had a lot of space to the left-hand side of the track, and he could have maybe moved over. But I would say that to that, I don't think Victor Martins is just going to move over to the left-hand side of the track and give Ollie Bearman the inside line and a little bit more of a better angle to go into that corner. He's not going to do that. So I do think it was probably Ollie Bearman's fault. And I think that penalty was probably fair. But anyway, let us know what you think in the comments. Let us know, whether you think that was Ollie Bearman's fault, whether that was, not necessarily if it was Ollie Bearman's fault, but whether that penalty was fair, because he did end up down in P7. Obviously, he would have finished in the points for that. And let us know if you think that Aaron is very biased as well. We love to hear that.
That he is.
The British bias comments, I can see them in the comments right now, Aaron. I can see them now. Okay, speaking of the Prema drivers, we hit 10k subscribers on our YouTube channel this week. And to celebrate, we're giving away some Prema driving cards, signed by Ollie Bearman and Frederick Vesti themselves. All you have to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow the link below to be in with a chance to win. We're going to select a winner at random ahead of the next round in Zandvoort. As always, a huge thank you to your support and good luck. Okay, moving on then, Enzo Fittipaldi was the winner of the sprint race. A double podium this weekend as well. That's, got to be his best weekend of the season, Emily, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you know what we were saying earlier about me being a good luck charm for Jack? I did say to Enzo when I saw him at Silverstone, have a good rest of the season. I wish you best of luck. So who knows? Maybe that was me as well. No, it definitely wasn't. But no, he had a great weekend. I'm really proud for him. You could tell how much it meant for him, that sprint race win, the way he ran up to his family and hugged them all. And then Teo came over and congratulated him as well. And just seeing the smile on his face, you can see how much that meant to him. And then obviously getting on the podium as well, again in the feature race, I think probably topped it all off for him. But by far the best weekend that we've seen from him all year. I'm so glad that he did really well this weekend. Hopefully he'll bring that onto him with Zandvoort, but I guess we'll have to see.
Aaron, your thoughts on the Carlin battle that went on in the feature race for well, it was all race, wasn't it? Some laps. It was, quite entertaining to watch, wasn't it?
Yeah, when they bumped wheels and came together, I thought they were going to be raging Carlins, but they kept everything under wraps. And on Enzo Fittipaldi, I'm so happy for him because last year with as they were called, Charus, he did a brilliant job. He was in a sort of an underdog team, and he really punched above his weight. And we expected big things from him earlier in this season, but it does go to show that a change of environment, it takes a little bit of time to settle down, and he's done a brilliant job this weekend. 2 podiums, his first win in Formula 2. And just from a sort of a nostalgic, sort of talking old man motorsport follower here. And it's great to see the Fittipaldi name doing well in motorsport, especially in Formula 1 single-seater sort of categories. A great hit for him, and great for Brazil as well, because obviously they're still looking for their next world champion. Ayrton Senna, their last world champion. I'm not suggesting for a moment that Enzo is going to go on to become a world champion. He could, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves. It's great for Brazil, though. They're really passionate, and if he could make that step into Formula 1, or if they could take Formula 2 to Brazil, that would be fantastic. Imagine the racing there. But Brazil, as a motorsport country, needs drivers doing well.
I would absolutely love to see Formula 2 in Brazil, but that is another podcast entirely about where the calendar should or shouldn't be in Formula 2. Aaron there reminiscing on the days he was trackside watching Emerson Fittipaldi winning the championship in 1972 and 1974. Sorry, Aaron, you're not that old. I'm joking.
Sometimes I feel it.
I do have to say, though, Jack Doohan voted as Inside F2's round driver of the round. I think that's really harsh on Enzo Fittipaldi. I think he had a great weekend. Maybe Jack Doohan fangirl Emily disagrees. But, I thought Enzo Fittipaldi maybe done out of a vote by the fans there, Emily. What's your thoughts on that?
No, I do agree with you there. I mean, Jack had his moment last weekend, He was really good at Hungary. Maybe we should have let Enzo get that vote. I think he deserved it more than Jack.
And that is a Jack Doohan fan saying that as well. Sort it out, guys. No, we're joking. You can vote for whoever you want to. And Jack Doohan was our driver of the round. The good news for Enzo Fittipaldi is that Carlin were voted your team of the round for round 11 across all of our social media channels. So, Carlin, your team of the round. A big well done to them. A few more things to cover off then. Should we start with Richard Verschoor? Got to be the unluckiest person in Formula 2, disqualified from a sprint race podium. Is he going for the record, Aaron, in terms of disqualifications in Formula 2? It's 3 times maybe now, isn't it? It's the poor guy just can't catch a break over the last few seasons, can he?
Yeah, they have to keep the champagne very much on ice wherever he's racing when he finishes on the podium, because it seems to be every time he finishes on the podium that it does get taken away from him after the fact. Obviously, in Austria last year, he'd won the feature race and then ran out of fuel, but that's pretty fundamental, actually, have fuel in the car. So this one, very disappointing. He'd obviously driven really well. He was unfortunate, actually, to lose the sprint race win. But I'm not even sure he'd have caught Doohan Déjà. I mean, I think that's super unlucky, actually, that the headrest coming loose. How often do you see that in motorsport in general? I think the last time I saw that was Lewis Hamilton in Baku 2017, and the time before that, to really show my age here, was I think it might have been the 2003 British Grand Prix, and I don't think either of you two were born then. So, that's how rare that occurrence is. But for then Richard to lose his position on the podium, really disappointing for him. But what they can take credit for at VAR was the performance. The pace was there. And Richard, of course, drove a good race. So while he doesn't get the points and the trophy for it, the confidence from that drive should still be there and continue. Should have hopefully continued on to Sunday and onto his home race in Zandvoort.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that I wanted to cover off, Isaac Hadjar and Clement Novalak in the pit lane. That was a little bit odd, wasn't it, Aaron? We haven't really seen that before, where drivers making contact with the wall on the exit to the pit lane. Was just the tyres weren't warmed up maybe in that situation?
Could have been. Could also have been a little bit of the classic Spa rain. I mean, the way that pit exit is set up, it's surprising that we don't see it more often, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, we've seen crashes in the pit lane before. Not very often. David Coulthard, who I've just mentioned, guilty of one of them in 1995. But this is turning into a Formula One history show now, isn't it?
It is.
But it's a really embarrassing moment. Obviously, Hadjar venting his frustration over the radio. Such a shame for him and for Clement Novalak as well, because if you get out of the pit lane there, you've got a nice run down to Eau Rouge and Raidillon, and you get a chance to undercut your rivals. But if you make a mistake, that's completely out the window. It's just one of those things, unfortunately, in racing. Sometimes, like with Victor Martins, speeding into the pit lane, he just didn't slow down enough or forgot to press the limiter at the right moment. It's just one of those things, unfortunately. And while it's embarrassing for them, you just got to move on, put it behind you, and head on to the next race.
Yeah, a weekend of, I guess unusual events with obviously that's happening. Dennis Hauger getting the black flag. Frederick Vesti, as we've already mentioned, dropping it on the reconnaissance lap, and Victor Martins as well. Very lucky boy he was that he didn't make more contact with the wall. So yeah, very odd weekend this far, wasn't it? Okay, let's take a look at the championship standings before we go then. Teo Pourchaire leads the Formula 2 Championship for the first time since Bahrain after a double podium. Frederick Vesti, he falls to P2, 12 points behind Teo Pourchaire. Difficult weekend for him. And Ayumu Iwasa, another difficult weekend for him as well. He remains P3. And the team standings? ART move 30 points clear of Prema in the battle of the team's championships as we move into the summer break. Carlin become the 9th team to win a Formula 2 race this season, indicating the competitiveness of the series. That's a new record, by the way. They move above Dam, so P3 in the standings. Big points haul for Virtuosi this weekend. They move to 6th. And Trident and PHM round out the team standings. Okay, that's all we got time for today. My thanks to Aaron and to Emily and to you guys at home for watching as well. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you give it a like, subscribe to hear more Formula 2 content and get involved in the conversation as well, whether that be in the comments on YouTube or on our social media channels. We love hearing your thoughts and opinions. But from me, Fraser Ford, and all of us here at Inside F2, we'll see you next time.